Hello, hello, shalom. Actually, let me just move that up a little bit. Hello, hello. Welcome, all of my precious goyim. Just kidding. I'm one of you. Now, we're all sons of Yakub here. Now, welcome to the Manly P. Hall streams. Secret Teachings of All Ages, Chapter 5! We're going to be getting into the life and teachings of our Lord and Savior, Hermes Trismegistus. But first things first, let us address the chat. Howdy everyone, howdy Tyler, Kimberly, another guy. I'm not going to read Blood and Throw, bro. Not going to read, but howdy Bob, howdy Shid, 9083, Loco in the chat, Surf, Out Tuition, what's going on? Can we crucify Carl next solstice? No. See, Carl, if you try to do that, Carl will just steal your foreskin. Now, it's time to do our usual weekly tarot pull. So let me shake it up a bit. Let me shake it up, and let's everyone try and remote view what card I'm going to pull, which will be revealed at the end of the stream. So we've got the Major Arcana. It's a tarot deck, standard Rider-Waite tarot deck, but only the Major Arcana. So it's it's 0 to 21, baby. Let's go. Ooh. Okay, here we go. Can you feel it? Can you feel what card I'm holding? It's the first thing that just pops into your mind. Everyone, put your ideas, leave a number, leave a card in the chat, and we'll see what it is right at the end. And while everyone's guessing, I guess I'll just going to address another guy also. See another guy, you need to read Circle of Inevitability. I've almost skipped through the entirety of the Dreamweaver chapter. In fact, you can once you get to volume 6, you can skip to chapter 1000 and it should be fine. It should be fine. And it's good. It's basically, I like, one guy put it, Circle of Inevitability is basically NTR. It's basically Franca really likes Jenna, and then she just gets cucked. And that's just all it is. It's just NTR. It's a really elaborate NTR with a fantasy paint job on top. So if you're into that, it should be perfect for you, bro. Now, what have we got? Tower, Strength, Tower, lots of towers. Hierophant, Temperance, Justice. A lady. Kimberly's guessing a lady. We got a Sun. Windows XP user, howdy, welcome. Circle of NTR. Greetings from the Wizard's Cave. Is that a Discord channel? Because I don't use Discord, but I've every now and then a couple of my videos when I look up the analytics, and it's users came from Facebook, and there's some from Discord, and I'm like, who are you people? Who are you people? Now, let's jump right into it. The life and teachings of Thoth Hermes Trismegistus, which means thrice great, by the way. For anyone who doesn't know the story, reason why he's called this is because he knows a third of all of the knowledge in the entire universe, which is pretty based, if you ask me. You're in our Manabund chat. Oh! Okay, so Telegram. Yeah, it's the Manabund guys. Howdy. From the Wizards guys. Of course, the channel name. Duh. Well, you gotta, just check out the donation goal, bro. It's all there. Oh, that's a beautiful perfume, by the way. Just talking to my wife, she's about to leave. Now, thunder rolled, lightning flashed. The veil of the temple was rent from top to bottom. The venerable initiator in his robes of blue and gold slowly raised his jeweled wand and pointed it into the darkness revealed by the tearing of the silken curtain. Tearing of silken curtain, foreskin being torn off. It's all coming together. Behold the light of Egypt. That's an interesting term. Very interesting. Chapter on Thoth. Esoteric meaning between the battle of Set and Horus. I mean, that's just the same old Asura versus, what do you call it? I mean, it could be kind of a new god versus old god thing, because the whole thing about Horus is he's a new god. He's the new boy in town. And Set's like, you know, the gangster with the leather jacket and the greasy hair, and he's like clicking his fingers, and then Horus is like, I just want to play baseball. And then, you know, he does something to a salad and Set makes a mistake, and boom. Horus is interesting because he is descendant from Osiris, but he also kind of replaces Ra. Part of that whole battle thing is Ra gives his eye to Horus, so Eye of Ra, Eye of Horus. There's like a transmission. All of this transmission of all of these old gods into this new god. The Horus is this synthesis. Naruto Sasuke gay tension fight as an archetype. Exactly, dog. No, back to Hermes though. Stop derailing this chat, another guy. The candidate, in his plain white robes, gazed into the utter blackness framed by the two great lotus-headed columns. So what we are reading here is an initiation. Very interesting. It's an initiation, between which the veil had hung. As he watched, a luminous haze distributed itself through the atmosphere until the air was a mass of shiny particles. So this is, imagine you're in a giant amphitheater, a giant chamber, and there are two giant pillars in front of you with like kind of lotus, like they're Corinthian columns, so their lotus is on top, and there's a curtain in between the two, and someone's like burnt a massive amount of incense, like a whole bag of incense, into a crucible like in the middle of the chamber, and so there's just mist everywhere. Imagine like this ambiance. This is the visual that you're getting from this. The face of the neophyte was illumined by the soft glow as he scanned the shimmering cloud for some tangible object. The initiator spoke again. The light which ye behold is the secret luminance of the mysteries. Whence it comes, none knoweth, save the master of light. Behold him. So this is interesting. So we've gone back to Atlantis, into the Greeks, and now we're talking a little bit about Egypt. So we're going to have this Greek-Egypt thing going on. Are shiny particles safe to inhale, asks Outtuition. Only if you have your foreskin. Suddenly, through the gleaming mist, a figure appeared, surrounded by a flickering greenish sheen. That's interesting. Greenish sheen is interesting. The color green in initiation is interesting. Green Knight, St. George killing a green dragon, it's usually green. The green one from Sufi myth. Leprechauns. Anyway. Surrounded by a flickering greenish sheen, the initiator lowered his wand and, bowing his head, placed one hand edgewise against his breast in humble salutation. The neophyte stepped back in awe, partly blinded by the glory of the revealed figure. Gaining courage, the youth gazed again at the divine one. The form before him was considerably larger than that of a mortal man. The body seemed partly transparent, so that the heart and brain could be seen pulsating. As the candidate watched, the heart changed into an ibis, and the brain into a flashing emerald. That's very interesting. That's very interesting. Emerald tablet. Why is the emerald tablet an emerald? Why isn't it a sapphire tablet or a ruby tablet? It's an emerald tablet for a reason. And the heart turning into an ibis is interesting. I guess that's the Egyptian version of, you know, like Orpheus, his heart turning into a swan, so his mysteries survive or something. In its hand, this mysterious being bore a winged rod. Very interesting. You see all these, like, symbols, and it's like, you see how the Golden Dawn really tried their darndest to revive these Egyptian mysteries. Howdy, esoteric programmer, welcome. We're just jumping straight into some Hermetic Egyptian magic. So winged-rod entwined with serpents. The aged initiator, raising his wand, cried out in a loud voice, "Hail thee, Thoth Hermes, thrice greatest! All hail thee, Prince of Men! All hail thee, who standeth upon the head of Typhon!" And this is actually a real thing. They found, because there's that whole thing about, oh, the Hermetica, it's all Greek, and, you know, blah, blah, blah. But they've actually found in some, I think it was in, like, one guy's temple, it was like a priest off in one of the towns, his little mausoleum has like an initiatic text around it, and in that he uses, you know, Thoth the great, and he says Thoth the great like 3 times always, so it's like Thoth, Hermes cognate, Hermes Trismegistus, thrice great, Thoth, great. It's always 3 times. They call him great. So there is some connection, even though scholars are like, meh. Necrodancer, howdy. Nulu in the chat as well. All the boys are back in town. Now, at the same time, at the same instant, a lurid, writhing dragon appeared. A hideous monster, part serpent, part crocodile, very interesting, and part hog. Just me initiating my hog. From its mouth and nostrils poured sheets of flame, and horrible sounds echoed through the vaulted chambers. What is this, Ganon? Suddenly, Hermes... oh my god. Hermes versus... it's just Ganon and Link is an archetype from Egypt. Anyway, suddenly Hermes struck the advancing reptile with the serpent-wound staff, and with snarling cry, the dragon fell over upon his side, while the flames about it slowly died away. Hermes placed his foot upon the skull of the vanquished Typhon. The next instant, with a blaze of unbearable glory that sent the neophyte staggering backwards against a pillar, the immortal Hermes, followed by streamers of greenish mist, green, it's always green, passed through the chamber and faded into nothingness. Outtuition, my god, dude, the Triforce. Yes, exactly. Now it's all coming together, Outtuition. It's all coming together. Oh, Kimberly K. I had a dream with Thoth. No, not sure why he scared the shit out of me and I ran away. That's very interesting. That's very interesting, because usually when we got real stuff, it's real, it actually has an emotional impact on us. And so that's interesting. That's interesting. He's coming to check you out. See what you're doing. Like, you know that Sam Hyde thing where it's just like his face and he's like, what you got in there? What you got in there? Sometimes the gods do that to us. And if we notice, you know, when you look at something, if we're standing in front of each other, I can see you and you can see me. But if I like cover myself with a cloak, you can't see me, but I can't see you anymore. And so there's this principle, it's like, you know, when you peer around the corner, to make your eye visible, you also expose yourself. So if you see something, if you gain knowledge of something, esoterically, that thing also gains knowledge of you. So it can be kind of intimidating when ontologically you meet a being that's on a higher rung than you, because it's just like, and that's the basic kind of reaction that people have to higher forces. That's the normal reaction. You know, that's why they say, like, God is terribly divine. Or, you know, or whenever angels appear in the Bible, what's the first thing they always say? Be not afraid. Why? Because people shit their pants. Normal reaction. Very normal. Another guy, I saw a recent video from Esoterica that mentioned that Hermes is also sometimes talked about with 8 instead of 3. Well, that's interesting. 8 is esoteric because it would be the Ogdoad, or generally in Western systems, because there's like 7 dimensions, but it's like those dimensions are the dimensions created by the Demiurge, and so the 8th dimension is the dimension beyond form, and so you have this Ogdoad, which is then the sacred thing. Craig Howard, Gawain and the Green Knight. Yeah, exactly. The green has a very esoteric significance in a whole bunch of different kind of cultures, which you can kind of make associations with. Isn't there an association with Thoth and a baboon also? Yes, so the gods have different animals that can represent them, and sometimes a baboon or some kind of simian ape is used to describe Thoth. So you could say almost like there's, like Manly P. Hall would probably say something like, there's two symbols, like the ibis is more of the higher Thoth and the, because if you're saying Thoth is the mind, then the ibis is like the higher mind, and the simian ape is like the lower mind, the primitive mind that humans usually use. You have your passive intellect, and then the ibis is the active intellect. What you got in your pocket? It's okay, you can tell me. Yes. King Arthur wrote history. King Arthur wrote history. Yes. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. That's why it's dangerous to know gods. I mean, not really, but it's like, that's why it's dangerous to know demons. Because if you begin to gain knowledge of evil, evil begins to gain knowledge of you. Suppositions concerning the identity of Hermes. Iamblichus averred that Hermes was the author of 20,000 books. That's pretty cray, dog. Baboons equal cynocephalus, yeah. That's, I think, the technical term they usually use. 20. So Manetho increased the number to more than 36,000. God damn. Figures which make it evident that a solitary individual, even though he be overshadowed by divine prerogative, could scarcely have accomplished such a monumental labor. Among the arts and sciences which it is affirmed Hermes revealed to mankind were medicine, chemistry, law, maybe that's, I'm not sure if that's a missing word there, architecture, astrology, music, rhetoric, magic, philosophy, geography, mathematics. Makes sense, especially geometry, anatomy, and oratory. Orpheus was similarly acclaimed by the Greeks. So we got to talk about this. This is interesting. So this is people dedicating books to a higher divinity. Because it's like, when you write a work or make a work, nowadays there's this whole thing. It's like, it's all about image. It's all about copyright. I'm an author. This is my work. In the old days, people would write a book, but they'd also be like, I wrote this thanks to my muse. Really, it came through me. And in even older times, it was just like, yeah, the god of the mind, the god of intellect. Hermes wrote this book. It's not me, so they would just put Hermes' name on it. And they do this in all cultures. It's like, goddamn trucks. It's like, in the East, in Taoism, the book, The Secret of the Golden Flower, that book, written by Anonymous, it's not written by Anonymous, it's written by, the actual term is Heavenly Flying Super Pen. So it sounds weird in English, but basically the image is supposed to be like, imagine like the Jade Emperor's hand coming out of the clouds, and there's like a hand with just a pen from heaven, with like a pen with wings on it, and it just scribed down a book, and it's like, that's supposed to be who authored The Secret Flower. But that's the thing, it's like, you write a sacred text. Did you really write it? You know, if you make a beautiful art which just has something eternal caked in it, did you really make that? So that's the kind of thing. It's like, Hermes wrote 36,000 books. Clearly there's a hermetic body of hermetic literature with multiple authors, but they all just attributed it to Hermes. Not because that's, you know, that's the inspiration I receive. That's I dedicate this to my master, or I dedicate this to the god who I worship, who has the god that has guided me. And it's interesting, all of these things are, once again, connected in that certain way. Medicine is obviously connected to chemistry. Astrology, geography, you'd be surprised at how those two are connected, because one maps out the stars, one maps out I mean, one maps out, it's not exactly cartography, map making, but one maps out the land, one maps out the stars, or researches the stars, one researches the land. And so you want to research above and below to get that synthesis, man, which is then the medicine and chemistry. And then and this requires mathematics, specifically geometry, and it's one of those things, it's like arithmetic. You start doing arithmetic, as soon as you start getting into algebra, algebra is basically music theory. So you got music there already, and then of course you need to... anatomy, medicine and chemistry can all be that middle thing above astrology and between geometry. The heaven, the earth, studying man, and then of course you need to be able to speak your teachings and discuss them. And also, as Aristotle says, Plato didn't like rhetoric, but Aristotle was like, no, evil people exist, and you need to be able to destroy them with facts and logic. I'm paraphrasing there, but that's why Aristotle was actually big on rhetoric. You need rhetoric. And then, of course, philosophy and magic. Praise the Lord, and philosophy, everything really is downstream of philosophy. The queen of all. Big Hole Art for with the $5. What up, Richard? Howdy, Big Hole Art. Thank you for the $5. Thank you so much. Also, Jason Valenzi in the chat. Welcome. Don't map the oceans. We aren't welcome there, says Out Tuition. Yes, exactly. Also, for those who weren't early, I drew a card at the beginning, so you can try and remote view it. Completely new card. What do you feel when I hold up this card? Just in case anyone hasn't made a guess yet. Now, Hermes Mercurius Trismegistus from Historia Diorum Fati Decorum. Fati Decorum. Is it just me or did that rhyme? Historia Decorum Fati Decorum. We got more guesses. Moon, Emperor. Shit guessing Justice. A couple of people guessed Justice. What was the other one? The Hierophant? Huh. Bro looking like Charles Xavier. Is that me or is that Hermes? Master of all arts and sciences. We got a couple of towers now as well. Interesting. Master of all sciences. Perfect in all crafts. Ruler of the three worlds. That's interesting. Three worlds? I guess heaven, the underworld, and man. Scribe of the gods. Keeper of the books of life. Both Hermes Trismegistus. The 3 times greatest. The first intelligencer. Was regarded by the ancient Egyptians as the embodiment of the universal mind. While in all probability there actually existed a great sage and educated by the name of Hermes. Merlin Hermes. It is impossible to extricate the historical man from the mass of legendary accounts which attempt to identify him with the cosmic principle of thought. In his Biographa Antiqua, Francis Barat says of Hermes. So this is interesting. So what do we have? We have historically, there may have been a biological person called Hermes, and then someone else comes along and does something great or writes a great text and it gets attributed to that guy. And then someone else writes some text and those texts get attributed to this guy. And you get this layering effect. And then some kind of mythology gets layered on, some folk tales get layered on, and you get this being that's actually a composite. And that's what a lot of myths are. King Arthur is basically that. King Arthur is a combination of like Roman generals, Welsh and Irish generals and kings, and then it's just kind of layered on top of each other, and he's become this archetypal kind of king of Britain, the king of the Britons. But he's actually this overlayering of different people to create this composite being, which is radically archetypal. When this happens, something organically grows. There's something eternal is always caked into it. It always gets a lot of eternity sprinkled into it. Much better than very few people as a single individual can create characters as rich as these kind of historical mythic characters, just because it's like one guy making a project against like you could say an entire culture or civilization flowing through time. I mean, there are some authors that are especially good at it. I mean, you know, like Tolkien and, you know, people like that, but I mean, Shakespeare would be one, but this is, of course, people who then, they're already, when they're doing this, they're already drawing from those archetypal things to make their own characters. So it's very interesting. It's very interesting, this principle. Is that little dude in the picture a monkey? Possibly. Oh no, it looks just like a normal dude just sleeping. This could be, Mars? Because there's this whole thing, you know, there's a lot of martial things here. Spears, arrows, a helmet. And then he's, I mean, he does kind of look, I mean, he's wearing armor? Or there's a set of armor here, so it could be like, there's this whole thing about Hermes putting Mars to sleep. Or Hermes, in a lot of tales, is able to, like, put a monster to sleep or something. So that may be a thing. Bro has so much loot in that picture. It was some pretty cool dude in the beginning for him to be spoken so well throughout the generations. Yeah. I mean, all it takes is one person to do one thing extraordinarily to him become like a kind of a seed. Like, think of a pearl in a fucking, what's it called? An oyster? Yeah, oyster. A pearl in an oyster. It's the thing that makes the center of the pearl doesn't need to be that big. It just needs to be in the right place at the right time, and then as soon as the coating process begins, it just naturally grows. There really seems to be an over-focus on knowledge in the whole image of Hermes. Gnosticism approved? Exactly. Hermeticism, Neoplatonism, and Gnosticism all have it's a triple P. They're the Triforce. That's the Triforce right there. Esoteric programmer, can you break down Harry Potter Trials for the Trials? Harry Potter's Trials for the Philosopher's Stone. Been a while since I watched it. The chess game was like duality, going beyond duality, good and evil, black and white squares, you know, got to get past the Cerberus, the instincts, because it's like the Cerberus is the instincts, the bestial thing, and then it's like chess is then this intellectual thing, and so you have to balance and use all things, and then it's like Harry Potter himself, it's like Hermione is the intellect, you know, Ron is the body, the instinct, and then like Harry Potter's the heart, you know, things like that. It's all symbolic. Something, something, something. I'm pulling this out of my ass. Outtuition. Big Boss Hermes. I'd be his top guy. If Hermes Trismegistus asked you to be his top guy, could you say no? Hermes needs me. The 4 houses of Hogwarts and the core values of each house. That's interesting. That's interesting. Ravenclaw, because it's also Ravenclaw is winged. Then Gryffindor is also a beast of the kind of that on the land, also lion heart, and then Slytherin is a chthonic creature, a serpent under the ground. And then there's the Hufflepuff. Lightning strike on the forehead, exactly. And so lightning is something that descends. He's enlightened. He's the child chosen, the enlightened one. Harry Potter is anti-based. Yeah, pretty much. Does J.K. Rowling know this too? I don't think so. It's just one of those things where, look, sometimes authors just hit archetypes. They just get it, and it's like, especially in a way, especially those first 2 books. I mean, you know, even in the second one, it's like there's a basilisk and it's a huge serpent kind of thing. Where does it live? Underneath the school, and so there's this school of magic, which then has this chthonic undercurrent. And it's like, how do they defeat it? It's like, there's a phoenix, a symbol of death and resurrection. And it's, there are symbols there. There are symbols there, and because she's used them, it's like, even consciously or not, it has some kind of vitality in it. Does she drop the ball? 100% she drops the ball, but in the end, it got picked up, didn't it? So, Tin Man, Scarecrow, and Lion from Oz? Exactly. Scarecrow missing a heart. No, Scarecrow missing a brain, the intellect. Lion missing a heart, courage. Emotional cylinder, Tin Man. No, wait, whose has the fucking heart? What am I talking about? You could say, yeah, sorry, I'm tripping balls. Tin Man needs the heart, his emotions back. Scarecrow needs a brain, intellect. Lion needs courage. That's more motor cylinder, so it's like the 3 brains. Gurdjieff, it's Gurdjieff approved, okay? Wizard of Oz, highly esoteric. When do we get to Manly People's Harry Potter chapter? Right now, baby, let's go. Goblet of Fire was dope, though. Yeah, true. True dat, y'all. People tap into that shit without even knowing. Exactly. And Dorothy needed some shoes, apparently. What kind of shoes did she need? She needed ruby slippers. Who wears red shoes? Red shoes were worn by Roman emperors. And in fact, usually the imperators, the leaders, would take up this thing of wearing red shoes. Or red boots. And then imperator became a what? A degree in a lot of Rosicrucian degrees. You reach the rank of imperator. You got that Roman aesthetic. So it's interesting that there's this kind of regal, it's an initiate wears red shoes. So what is she doing? She's walking on the golden brick road. She's walking on the path, the golden road. She's walking on this road, and then it's like she needs to attain initiation. Slippers were silver in the book. That's why they changed it for the movie, to make it more initiatic. But I mean, hey, silver slippers, golden brick road, bruh. Emerald castle, emerald tablets, Hermes Trismegistus, it's all making sense. Even, like, look, even this stuff from our modern culture, these are modern myths, and yeah, they're not as potent as ones from previous centuries, but you see, man can't help but accidentally imbue archetypes into these things. Some say silver shoes on the gold road was a critique of moving away from the gold standard. That's interesting. Dorothy has red hair, fiery will. Exactly. See, you guys are getting it now. The wizard was a false magician. The guy behind... Exactly, he was a false initiator. You need to cast down the false ones. The man behind the veil. Because this is the thing, remember that initiation described at the very beginning? It's like in the old times it was like that, and you know, they would open the veil and there'd be a statue there, and because of all the incense and you're kind of tripping out, you know, they'd be speaking and it would be like the statue, the gods were talking to you. And it's like this huge thing that's bigger than a normal being. Of course it's a god. But then over time the priests became corrupt, and so what Dorothy is doing is she's coming into these ancient mysteries, these old mysteries, but she's coming into a time of degeneration, where there's witches around. And there's witches around, and the only wizard, the wizard who's supposed to bring order, he's just a simp cuck. He doesn't have real initiation. He parrots these old mysteries, but he doesn't actually have anything. So we need to have the courage to pierce behind the curtain. To take, you know, his knowledge may be good. It's like we need to take this knowledge and we need to apply it. We need to become new initiates. We need to bring it back. Why do witches melt when they get wet? All women melt when they get wet. Now, in his Biographia Antiqua, Francis Barrett says, if God ever appeared in man, he appeared in him as is evident both from his books and his Pymander. in which works he has communicated the sum of the abyss and the divine knowledge to all posterity, by which he has demonstrated himself to have been not only an inspired divine, but also a deep philosopher. We gotta be deep philosophers, guys. Obtaining his wisdom from God and heavenly things, and not from man. See, this is why we do it. This is why we practice. Because if you look at take the Gurdjieff system, it's like you have your intellectual cylinder, your emotional cylinder, your motor cylinder, your motor instinctual, right? Here's the problem. Most of the functioning of those cylinders come from the outside. An impression comes from the outside to the inside. So an impression hits you, and the intellectual cylinder starts thinking, and how the thoughts produce. They're produced from things that come from your senses. Or someone says something, and that produces thinking. Or someone says something, and you go, oh, that's wrong. That emotional reaction is what? It's a functioning of the emotional cylinder that happened as a reaction to an impression that came from outside. Outside, it's all outside. So when you begin to introspect, when you begin to unhook your cylinders from impressions from the outside, and you just learn to sit without the functioning of any cylinders, and you just are the essence, just sitting as the essence, cultivating essence, eventually things begin to unfold, and you begin to get little insights, little sparks, flashes of things, little inspirations. You begin to get intuitional impulses of mysticism, and it's like what you're getting is then impressions that arrive to you from the inside. So your motor cylinder, your habits, they're created from an exterior way, from reactions from the outside. Well, as you begin to meditate, as you begin to cultivate, as you begin your occult practice, you eventually begin to act via internal impressions, via the internal world, rather than the external world. This is what makes us deep philosophers. This is what we got to do, bruh. Outtuition. I'm so deep and misunderstood philosopher, I say as I bring my acoustic guitar to the party. Hey, that's fine. Just, if I catch you playing Wonderwall, if I catch you even beginning, now, where are we talking? Where are we going? Let's go. Let's go. His transcendent learning caused Hermes to be identified with many of the early sages and prophets. In his ancient mythology, Bryant writes, I have mentioned that Cadmus was the same as the Egyptian Thoth, and it is manifest from his being Hermes, and from the invention of the letters being attributed to him. In the chapter on the theory of Pythagorean mathematics, will be found the table of the original Cadmean letters. Very interesting. Investigators believe that it was Hermes, who was known to the Jews as Enoch, called by Kenali? How do you spell that? How do you pronounce that name? Kenali. Kenali? The second messenger of God. Okay. Wow. Interesting. Hermes was accepted into the mythology of the Greeks. So Book of Enoch, important because it's Hermetic. Into the mythology of the Greeks, later becoming Mercury of the Latins. This is actually true. Hermes is a kind of an added god, which is interesting. I think, what is it, in like Old Linear B or Mycenaean Greek, he's not there. I think there's a bunch of gods that actually aren't there. It's like Aphrodite isn't there in Mycenaean Greek and things like that. Hermes has some weird kind of stories, because Hermes has some weird kind of connection with Pan. So it's kind of like some statues of Pan, or like, it was like they would have a pile of rocks called a herm, but it would have a male kind of figure there. There's some like lore behind how kind of Hermes is drawn from Pan, but anyway. How the fuck is Hermes getting assimilated into a myriad of religions? Why? Because people just travel, bro. People travel. In Alexandria, Egyptian Alexandria, the Jews would have connected with the ancient Greek mysteries. Greece and Egypt were always kind of connected. And even in Roman times, you see, there's like... We talk about the state religions, but that's one of the things they keep finding, you know, digs in Rome, archaeological digs in Rome. They find like a random old person's house from like 300 AD, and instead of a Christian crosses or Roman statues, they pull out like an Egyptian statue of Isis, and it's like, clearly there were different cults around that were syncretic. But, I mean, it even extends to when the Germanic tribes came. There was, like, Roman governors being like, they worship Odin, who is Mercury to us. And, you know, it's syncretism, bro. It's syncretism. Yeah, exactly. Hermes has the most connections because he traverses all three realms: Earth, Olympus, and Hades. He was revered through the form of the planet Mercury, because this bode is nearest to the sun. Hence Hermes and Apollo's just high-fiving. Hermes, of all creatures, was nearest to God, and became known as the messenger of the gods. In the Egyptian drawings of him, Thoth carries a waxen writing tablet, and serves as the recorder during the weighing of the souls of the dead in the judgment hall of Osiris. A ritual of great significance. Hermes is of first importance to Masonic scholars. Interesting. I mean, because Hermes is connected to oratory and rhetoric, he would also be connected to the art of memory. Hence, the art of memory itself, mnemonics, are Hermetic practices. That would be interesting. That's an interesting rabbit hole. Because he was the author of the Masonic initiatory rituals. Oh, would you look at that? Freemasonry, Hermetic, confirm. Which were borrowed from the mysteries established by Hermes. Nearly all of the Masonic symbols are Hermetic in character. Pythagoras studied mathematics with the Egyptians, and from them gained his knowledge of the symbolic geometric solids. Can someone, like, find this thing, right, where there's totally a... You know the Platonic solids? Plato wrote that at a specific point in time, but they found, like... Because, you know, like a bunch of Platonic solids, like, literally... like rocks carved as the Platonic solids as a set. They find them in archaeological digs in Scotland. But they're, you know, I don't know how they, like, date rocks. I guess the rocks, but maybe the artistry in the rocks they can date. And it's like it predates Plato's, like, Plato's dialogues. So there's this weird knowledge, basically. Because I know the Greeks... and the Phoenicians and everyone in the Mediterranean did know about Brittany, because there were Phoenician trade would go up there to buy tin, a whole bunch. But it means that there's some kind of Druidic, Platonic understanding of geometry. And they actually, the Druids, at least in North Scotland, actually made physical Pythagorean Platonic solids as a part of their kind of temple training or something. It's just a weird, and this is just like, they just find these every now and then, and it's just weird that they exist. But anyway, Scottish people, the original Platonists. Hermes is also revered for his reformation of the calendar system. He increased the year from 360 to 365 days, thus establishing a precedent which still prevails. I forget, when they just did 360, did they do a thing where, like, every couple of years they would just have an extra month? Because the drift was so severe, and then they were like, nah, we got to stop that. 365s, and then just have a leap year. Just have a day every 4 years or something. thus establishing a precedent which still prevails. The appellation thrice greatest was given to Hermes because he was considered the greatest of all philosophers, the greatest of all priests, the greatest of all kings. It was worthy of note that the last poem of America's beloved poet Henry Wadsworth Longfellow was a lyric ode to Hermes. That's interesting. Everyone, we should check that out after the stream. I was going to say greatest of all philosophers. Oof. So not he's the greatest of all philosophers, first of all philosophers, not Zoroaster. Georgiani shaking and crying right now. Ooh, Scouse says Hermes appears on top of the deacon's wands in masonry. Doves are used in Blue Lodge masonry. Oh, and Mark masonry. Okay, that's interesting. That's very interesting. Rocks are dated using radioisotopes. Okay. So I guess they did some dating in the ones in Scotland, and they just like concluded they predate Plato, which once again is just interesting. Oh, thank you, Tyler. Tyler dropped the link to the poem in the chat, so everyone, after the stream's over and we found out what this tarot card is, then everyone use Tyler's link. In Pappus's Tarot of the Bohemians, he teaches that Pythagoras' tetractys was developed as his own way of teaching the law embedded with Yod-He Vahe. That's very interesting. Pythagoras' tetractys is also one of the sources for the Sephiroth of the Kabbalah that predates Kabbalah. Crows again. Yeah. You hearing the crows? Just close that window. Odin be spying on the stream. He likes knowledge. He loves getting knowledge. And these streams are a well of wisdom, aren't they? Now, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Mutilated hermetic fragments, R.I.P. R.I.P. On the subject of the hermetic books, James Campbell Brown, in his History of Chemistry, was written, leaving the Chaldean and earliest Egyptian periods of which we have remains, but no record. The crows are trying to holler at Carl. And from which no names of either chemists or philosophers have come down to us, we now approach the historic period, when books were written, not at first upon parchment or paper, but upon papyrus. A series of early Egyptian books is attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, who may have been a real savant. So he took the savant potion path. He clearly had the acting method, because damn bro reached Knowledge Emperor real quick. Or may be a personification of a long succession of writers. He is identified by some of the Greek gods Hermes, and the Egyptian Thoth, or Tuti, Tehuti, or Tuti, or Titi, or Tata, who was the moon god, and he is represented in ancient paintings as ibis-headed, with the disc and the crescent moon. That just reminded me, because the Jews say Enoch was Hermes, and I think Islamists also say that, but because it's Hermes is then Thoth and connected with the moon plays this big role in Islam, and so there's this weird Hermetic Sufi Islam which goes hard into Hermes, and they're very Neoplatonic as well. As just getting some random stuff from the bank. Someone look that up. Samuel Ingram, dude, I just came across your channel. I'm a total newbie, but curious. An unrelated question, but it's burning one for me. Are the supernatural beings discussed in occult real or all in our head? So, depends what theory of mind you're using, Samuel. Because here's the thing, Samuel. Is your theory of mind based on materialism? Matter exists, and that's the only thing that exists, and then matter magically arranged itself, and out of this arrangement, consciousness arose as an epiphenomena. And without matter, consciousness wouldn't exist. Because if that's what your theory of mind is based on, we're going to have some problems, Samuel. Because this is the thing. Magic isn't just real. Magic uses a completely different ontology than filthy, simp-cuck, materialist, reductionist sciences do. Not all sciences use a reductionist materialist paradigm, but this is the main problem when all people approach this. So are they real, or are they in your head? Some of them, some beings are beings. Some entities are constructs out of mind stuff, such as egregors. If you hear the term egregor, that's a construction of mind, and it may be in your head, but it will also influence the minds of other people. Because this is the other thing: is it all in your head? But all minds are connected. So if all the minds are connected, something in your head has a little bit more zhuzh than just like, oh, it's a psychological issue that I have. You know what I'm saying? Once you open up this implication, all of these things unfold, and you get a saying, oh, is it real or is it in your head? There's a whole bunch of things that start arising from that. Can't get Hermes' death scene in God of War 2. I think it was out of my head. Kratos rips his feet off. Oof, damn. Bruh. Oh, esoteric programmer, tarot card guest, the magician. Okay, cool. I'll remember that. Rich gonna reset his whole cosmology midstream. My theory of mind is what Robert Lanza discussed in Biocentrism book. Okay, I haven't read it, so I don't know. Sorry, bro. Best start believing in esoteric mythology, son. You're in one. Exactly. As our tuition said. Islam refers to Enoch as the prophet Idris. Ah, there we go. That's what I'm thinking of. Idris, and then they connected to Moses. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Samuel, dude, you're a legend. Do you interact with your viewers? Thanks for answering my question. Made a lot of sense to me and put me on a path to learn more. Subscribed. Okay. Hell yeah, it's a +1, guys. Nice. Where am I? Who was the moon god and represented in ancient paintings as ibis-headed, with the disc and crescent of the moon? Disc and crescent of the moon. Islam confirmed. The Egyptians regarded him as the god of wisdom, letters, and the recording of time. It is in consequence of the great respect entertained for Hermes by the old alchemists that chemical writings were called hermetic, and the phrase hermetically sealed is still to be used to designate the closing of glass vessels by fusion. Okay, that's interesting. After the manner of chemical manipulators. Oh, okay. We find the same root in the Hermetic medicines of Paracelsus and Hermetic Freemason of the Middle Ages. You still see hermetically sealed on, like, that's interesting that it's something specific, because I feel that's become more non-specific as time has gone by. Because it is actually quite rare, but I remember back in the day you could find like some canned food and some jarred food would sometimes say hermetically sealed on it, meaning it's just sealed good. It's sealed good. But yeah, that's interesting. That's where it comes from. Among the fragmentary writings believed to have come from the stylus of Hermes are two famous works. The first is the Emerald Tablet, the big boy. So the Emerald Tablet is super important. All of the alchemists love it. And there's some... Sorry. Thought a tree branch fell outside, tripping me there. Hermes selling jar jams these days indeed, Tyler. There's a Emerald Tablet. So there was this, at least from my memory, the first time it appears in the West was from Albertus Magnus, who just wrote it down. And like, say like I'm gonna fuck up the dates, but let's just say it was like 14th, 15th century. And people were like, he just made it up. Scholars were like, it's not real, it didn't come from Hermes. But then They found emerald tablets in Arabic that predated him by like 300 years. And from the style of Arabic, they could tell that it was translated from an earlier Greek version. So, emerald tablet, real. Let's go. And emerald tablet, a lot of the philosophy in it forms the groundwork for a lot of alchemy. So what you should do is you should go and get the emerald tablet tattooed on your back. And then when you die, in your will, ask for your skin to get flayed and turned into leather and hung up in your family's villa. Real. You got to do it now. As the second is the Divine Pymander, very important work. Or Divine Pymander is the one that Agrippa believed was a fifth gospel. So Agrippa, the theologian, who also alchemist and magician, but he was a theologian, very much liked the Christ, very much liked the four gospels, and he considered the Divine Pymander. In the Divine Pymander, Hermes is being taught by a being called Pymander, a being of light comes to him. And Agrippa basically says the Pymander is Jesus, or is Christ, before the Bible. So the Divine Pymander to Agrippa is the fifth gospel of Christianity. Make the tattoo with a dirty needle to turn your back green. You don't need to go that far, dog. Divine Pymander, or as it is more commonly called, the Shepherd of Man. That's interesting. The Shepherd of Man. As it is commonly called. I don't think it's commonly called that anymore. But there's one thing that's interesting, because in early Bibles, there was a book called the Shepherd of Herm, or Shepherd of Hermas or something, but it gets taken out of Bibles that came later. In really early versions of the Bible, there was a Shepherd of Hermas. It's just because they only got taken. It seems like some kind of wisdom literature, and it does kind of connect. It doesn't violate the teachings of Christianity or anything. It just doesn't have Jesus in it. So they were like, why is this here? But yeah, in early unsanctioned books of the Bible, there was a similarly named book, which is interesting. Hermetic backshots, Jesus Christ. A discussion of which follows. One outstanding point in connection with Hermes is that he was one of the few philosopher priests of pagandom, upon whomst the early Christians did not vent their spleen. That's a very good, I like that phrase. Some church fathers went so far as to declare Hermes exhibited many symptoms of intelligence, and that if he had only been born in a more enlightened age so that he might have benefited by their instructions, he would have been a really great man. Yeah, so this is legit. Apparently there are a whole bunch of church fathers. Specifically, when you look at early church fathers and their locations, there's some all in Rome, and then there's some in the Levant and Syria, and then there's some all across Egypt. The ones in the monasteries all across Egypt, all of them write about Hermes, and they're all like, this guy was a Chad. Best version translation of Bible? Old and New Testaments? Question mark, says Tyler. Best version is learn Greek and read the Greek Bible, because they butcher it, apparently. They butcher it. Best translation, get a Catholic Haydock Bible and get a what's the James New Testament translation or whatever. Get a King James version and get a Catholic Haydock Bible. So Catholic Haydock is Greek, is from Latin to English, and then King James, is that Greek to English, or anyway? Just get a bunch of different Look, best Bible translations, forget about. Just read the books you want to read, but then get different Bible translations and read the books you want to read multiple times in different translations just to triangulate. That's the best you can do, unless you learn Greek. And everyone's like, "Oh, learn Aramaic." Look, you can learn Aramaic, you can learn Hebrew, you can do it all you want. Yeah, that's the language they spoke, but the language it was written in was Greek. The first language it was written down in was Greek. What's a good translation of the Emerald Tablets? You see, Emerald Tablets is short, so I'll just say go to there's like a site, I'm pretty sure archive.org has a compilation of all of them. And everyone's got their own translations. Fulcanelli has some. There's some ones from Arabic. There's the Latin one from Albertus Magnus. And it's hard because I don't like any of them completely. There are sections of one where I'm like, that sounds really good. And then there's certain choices in other parts which I don't like. And it's really annoying. So just because it's short, it's not like an entire book. It's just like the Emerald Tablet is what, like 20 verses or something, 18 verses. And so just go onto the archive and just get just look at all the different translations. Just spend a couple of hours in an afternoon and just look for the one you like the most. Biocentrism says consciousness creates reality using quantum physics, like the observer effect. When I read it, it reminded me of Hermeticism says about all is mind. Yeah. So you could say there's like potential, and what we are as consciousness is something that interprets. So when we look at the potential, we do interpret it, we order it. But the whole idea of esotericism is that processing of ordering and making sense filters something out, and what's filtered goes into the subconscious region or the underworld within us. And so a part of magic is transmuting the black into white, the subconscious into consciousness, pulling out of the chthonic regions, the underground regions within us, this non-rational intelligence. And that's why, you know, dreams and things like that are weird and speak with symbols. It's because they literally cannot speak with rationality. Because your reason is the thing that orders the world, and it's just everything that doesn't apply to. So it's via its own intrinsic nature, that which is in the subconscious regions, or the unconscious regions of your consciousness, via its own intrinsic nature, it is anti-logical, or even supra-logical. So the same thing would apply to certain transcendental things, except the transcendental things would not necessarily, it wouldn't violate any logic, but it would also supersede logic. You probably aren't able to arrive at certain transcendental things through logic, but through certain other faculties, illumination, intuition, you can gain a certain kind of transcendental knowledge and then kind of backwards work it into logic and bring it into the conscious mind. As a physicist, it made me interested in the occult. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. Now go read Heidegger's Being and Time. Outtuition. The best translation of the Emerald Tablet is the one you do yourself, unless you're Billy Carson and don't. Yeah, there are some that are fine. There are some that are fine. It's hard because there are some verses that are a little bit different from Albertus Magnus's and the Arabic one, and then there's hypothetical reconstructions of a Greek one. And so it's all, you know, the translators and their lies, like what the preference of the translator is, but also which source they use to translate out of. Could be older than Greece. I'm pretty sure there's also some Syriac Emerald Tablets as well. Could be, and could it be older than Greece? Yes. Also yes, because it would have been oral until it was written down in Greek. Ken Wheeler did a translation of the Emerald Tablet. Okay. I've never played Disco Elysium. Should I? Should I do a live stream where we all drink while listening to Death Grips and playing Disco Elysium? Is that what you want, Outtuition? Is that what you all want? Anyway, in Stromata, Clement of Alexandria, one of the few chronicles of pagan law whose writings have been preserved to this age, gives practically all the information that is known concerning the original 42 books of Hermes, and the importance with which these books were regarded by both the temporal and spiritual powers of Egypt. Clement describes one of their ceremonial processions as follows. Kangaroo Caliphate says, yes, best game ever. I've never played it. Yes, kind of, as long as we start with a money store. Okay. For the Egyptians, pursue a philosophy of their own. So this is a quote from, this is apparently a Chad quote. Let's lock in for this, guys. This is principally shown by their sacred ceremonial. For the first advances the singer, bearing some one of the symbols of music, for they say that he must learn 2 of the books of Hermes, the one of which contains the hymns of the gods, the second the regulations for the king's life, and after the singer advances the astrologer. With a horoglobe? What the hell is this? Timepiece, bruh. With a timepiece in his hands and a palm, the symbols of astrology, he must have the astrological books of Hermes, which are 4 in number, always in his mouth. Okay. Of these, one is about the order of the fixed stars that are visible, another is about the conjunctions and luminous appearances of the sun and the moon, and the rest, respecting their risings. Next in order advances the sacred scribe with wings on his head, and in his hand a book and rule, in which we're writing ink, and the reed with which they write. And he must be acquainted with what are called hieroglyphics, and know about cosmography and geography, the position of the sun and the moon, and about the 5 planets, also the description of Egypt, and the chart of the Nile, and the description of the equipment of the priests, and of the place consecrated to them, and about the measures of the things in use in the sacred rites. Then the stole keeper follows those previously mentioned, with the cubit of justice, and the cup of life for libations. Well, libations are gifts to the god, right? Refers to ritualistic pouring of liquid, such as wine, water, or milk. Delicious! Oh, baby, pour your libations all over me. With a cubit of justice and the cup for libations. He is acquainted with all points called padutic, relating to training, and moschophaltic, sacrificial. There are also 10 books which relate to the honor paid by them to their gods, and containing the Egyptian worship, as that relating to sacrifices, first fruits, hymns, prayers, processions, festivals, and the like. And behind all walks the prophet, with the water vase carried openly in his arms, who is followed by those who carry the issue of loaves. He, as being the governor of the temple, learns the 10 books called hieratic, and they contain all about the laws, the gods, also these books sound based, and above, and the whole of the training of the priests, for the prophet is among the Egyptians. Also for the prophet is among the Egyptians, also over the distribution of their revenues. Got to distribute those revenues, baby. There are then 42 books of Hermes indispensably necessary, for which 36 containing the whole philosophy of the Egyptians are learnt by the forementioned personages, the other 6, which are medical, by the pastophori, image bearers. Image bearer, that's interesting. That's very interesting. Treating of the structure of the body and of disease, and instruments and medicine, and about the eyes, and last, about women. Hermes wrote a whole book on women, and it has been lost to time. R.I.P. R.I.P. Sacredtext.org. Sorry, Sacred Texts is the place that had all of the Emerald Tablet translations on. Thank you, Tyler. God damn, I want that Hermetic book on women. Damn. Damn, all of the things that could have been lost. Hermes Trismegistus on women. That would have been crazy, dog. It would have had all of the answers. But for real, what would it have said? On Hermes Trismegistus, how to respect women. That would have been the ultimate. One of the greatest tragedies of the philosophic world was the loss of nearly all of the 42 books of Hermes mentioned in the foregoing. These books disappeared during the burning of Alexandria, for the Romans and later the Christians realized that until these books were eliminated, they could never bring the Egyptians into subjection. The volumes which escaped the fires were buried in the desert, and their location is now known only to a few initiates of the secret schools. So potentially, some chick probably got angry and burned it. Potentially it's still out there, dog. We're boys. We all got to take a trip to Egypt and find Hermes' book on women. Out tuition, you would love Disco Elysium. No other game lets you roleplay as a deranged fascist, I mean traditionalist detective that believes in cryptids and psychic powers and be a meth addict. That sounds pretty cool, actually. Just read the mystery method. Jesus Christ. Just hit up the Akashic record. Yeah, I guess. It was never written, says Out Tuition. Remote view. We got a remote view, the Book of Hermes. But before that, y'all got a remote view what this tarot card is. This was the tarot card pulled at the beginning of the stream. Keep those guesses coming. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure to Egypt to find the Book of Hermes on women. Let's go. Diamond Stardust Crusaders find Dio has stolen Hermes' book on women. Now let's keep. Shall we keep going? Yeah, we'll keep going. We'll keep going. This is a nice little one here. Samuel says 9 of Cups. Oh no. So Samuel. The tarot card pool is just of the major arcana, so 0 to 21. Either pick a card or pick a number. Dio, he is a gay vampire. Yes, he is. Anyone into Dio the musician? Ever looked up what the song Holy Diver is about? It's very esoteric. While Hermes still walked the earth with men, he entrusted to his chosen successors the sacred Book of Thoth. The work contained the secret processes by which the regeneration of humanity was to be accomplished, and also served as the key to his other writings. Nothing definite is known concerning the contents of the Book of Thoth, other than that its pages were covered with strange hieroglyphic figures and symbols which gave to those acquainted with their use unlimited power over the spirits of the air. And this is interesting. So the spirits of the air were a big thing back then. You think, like, what about spirits of the earth? And, it's like the spirit, there's the 4 airs and the 4 regions needed to be kind of dominated or at least spoken to. Because they're the divinities that order the environment. Samuel says 14. Temperance. Okay. Now, spirits of the air and the subterranean divinities. Interesting. So it's subterranean divinities. Back after Christianity, everything subterranean gets like the demon slap label on it. But back in the day, there are things that are divine that live underground. So it's not necessarily everything underground is bad. There are divine things underground. When certain areas of the brain are stimulated by the secret processes of the mysteries, the consciousness of man is extended, and he is permitted to behold the immortals and enter into the presence of the superior gods. The Book of Thoth described the method whereby the stimulation was accomplished. In truth, there it was the key to immortality. Hold on a second. certain areas of the brain are stimulated by a secret process of the mysteries. The consciousness of man is extended, and he is permitted to behold the immortals. Very interesting. And this is the key to immortality. So everyone remember, the key to immortality isn't about keeping your body perpetually alive. It's that when you die, your consciousness goes to sleep and you lose all your memories. And so you've got to start again. But if you can extend your consciousness beyond its usual boundaries, then at the moment of death, there's perhaps a chance that your consciousness can become perpetual and you can become a being with a chronology outside of time and space. Even if you don't become a god and you become a human again, retaining your memories still allows you to continue onwards and continue a great work off into the future. For this world is not just a world, but it is a womb that gives birth to angels and demons. You know what I'm saying? So true. Death Stranding talks about this unironically. Really? Hideo Kojima, esoteric. Confirmed. According to legend, the Book of Thoth was kept in a golden box in the inner sanctuary of the temple. There was but one key, and this was in the possession of the Master of the Mysteries, the highest initiate of the Hermetic Arcanum. He alone knew what was written in the secret book. The Book of Thoth was lost to the ancient world with the decay of the mysteries, but its faithful initiates carried it, sealed in the sacred casket, into another land. This book is still in existence, says Manly P. Hall, I don't know about that, and continues to lead the disciples of his age into the presence of the immortals. No other information can be given to the world concerning it now, but the apostolic succession from the first Hierophant initiated by Hermes himself remains unbroken to this day, and those who are peculiarly fitted to serve the immortals may discover this priceless document, if they will search sincerely and tirelessly for it. So basically, in the Western tradition, we say this is the Tarot. The whole... Another guy. Divine Underground? Underground like the Abyss? Divinities in the Abyss? Richard and Manly, left-hand path confirmed. Yes, another guy. Bruh. Will there be another incarnation of Hermes ever again? Will he return? Yes, Hermes is inside us. Hermes is inside us all out tuition. The real Hermes was inside you all along. Now, this whole story about the Book of Thoth surviving, it supposedly survives in 72 pages, which then get mimetically translated into 72 images, which then get turned into the tarot cards, because instead of it being corrupted or lost, it gets turned into something that will be perpetuated by man forever, because the vice of gambling will never disappear. So by turning it into a card game, man's vice will continue these mysteries throughout history, so that those who have the knowledge will never lose the real teachings, or those who have the capacity to be initiated will never lose the teachings. That was the idea. So tarot cards, each one is a mimetic, archetypal, hieroglyphic door that can be opened using your consciousness so that you can gain metaphysical knowledge via illumination and inspiration. You know what I'm saying? I thought the tarot was totally gay until Tomberg and Papoose red-pilled me that the Masters made it into a card game to spread it all over the world via gamblers and divine gypsies. Exactly, Nulu. Exactly. That's what's up. That's what's up. That's what's up, Nulu. That's what's up. It has been asserted that the Book of Thoth is, in reality, the mysterious tarot of the Bohemians. That's why Papoose named his book that. A strange emblematic book of 78 leaves, which has been in possession of the gypsies since the time when they were driven from their ancient temples of Atlantis, the Serapeum. Oh, so Manly believes the gypsies are ancient Serapists. According to the secret histories, the gypsies were originally Egyptian priests. They weren't. There are now in the world several secret schools privileged to initiate candidates into the mysteries, but in nearly every instance they lighted their altar fires from the flaming torch of Hermes, in his Book of Thoth, reveals to all mankind the one way, and for ages the whys of every nation and every faith have reached immortality by that way, established by Hermes in the midst of the darkness for the redemption of mankind. What a giga-chad, what a giga-chad. Fantastic. Now let's just read this little fourth-headed ibis and we'll continue this next week. The Thoth-headed ibis. From Wilkinson's Manners and Customs of the Egyptians. It is doubtful that the deity called Thoth by the Egyptians was originally Hermes, but the two personalities were blended together, and it is now impossible to separate them. Thoth was called the Lord of the Divine Books, the Scribe of the Company of the Gods. He is generally depicted with the body of a man and the head of an ibis. The exact symbolic meaning of the latter bird has never been discovered. A careful analysis of the peculiar shape of the ibis, especially the head beak, should prove illuminating. I think it's because the beak looks kind of thin, like something you'd write something down with. Something, something, something. And he's got a cool wizard's hat. Yeah. So, join in next week and we'll dive deep into the poimandrings. We'll get visions. We'll get knowledge. We will be initiated into the Hermetica. And for what you've all been waiting for. Everyone made your guesses? Everyone used your remote viewing, your faculty of remote viewing? Just one more time. Let's see if anyone's got it. Talking about Hermes, of course it was the Hermit. You know what's wild is I don't pick these at all. Like, as in like, I'm not like trolling you and just picking it out to be a thematic thing. I literally pulled this just on accident. And was it like the last time? It's always been symbolically connected. How crazy. But of course you should have guessed it, boys. We were talking about Hermes. It would have to be the Hermit. For real. For real. Them real bars. It's the tarot. The gods speak to us through the images of the tarot. It was too obvious. Exactly. Exactly. Now, I'll see you all next week, or I've gotten in contact with Abbas the Alchemist for an interview, so depending on what he's doing, I'm either going to interview him in my spare time, or maybe I'll do I'm thinking of doing a live stream in the middle of the week for just doing like the paths of Lord of Mysteries. We'll do like a Lord of Mysteries 22 paths, and we'll all just like get our drinks together and have a stream where we critique them. And I'll talk about the best paths and the best combos, because everybody's wrong and they don't understand them, and I'm the only one who's correct. So, and I just want to do it anyway. So, thank you all for joining along this week. Birds in the chat for Carl. Thank you all for listening in. And if you want to help out, what am I talking about? If you want to help out supporting, that was the word, supporting these streams, do consider giving a one-time donation by PayPal or the Ko-fi account or something. Become a YouTube member, get access to the secret chat, because we do monthly streams with Franz Barden. Let's go. See you all next week for some more Hermes. Pee pee poo poo. I love you, you.